Leonard Cohen's use of the Casio PT-30 synthesizer became a signature aspect of his music in the 1980s. The Casio PT-30, a small and inexpensive keyboard, may seem like an unlikely instrument for a legendary songwriter, but Cohen used it to great effect. Known for its simple, preset rhythms and limited sound options, the PT-30 added a minimalist quality to Cohen's music during this period. Cohen's decision to incorporate the Casio PT-30 was reflective of his move towards a more synthesized and electronic sound. Albums like Various Positions and I'm Your Man prominently feature the keyboard. The simplicity of the PT-30 allowed Cohen to focus on his deep, poetic lyrics and haunting melodies, with the synthesizer providing a backdrop that was both sparse and atmospheric. The sound of the PT-30 gave his music a raw, intimate feeling that contrasted with the often lush production of other artists of the era. In songs like Hallelujah and First, We Take Manhattan, the PT-30's rhythm tracks and basic melodies provided a foundation over which Cohen's gravelly voice could deliver his contemplative, often spiritual lyrics. The use of this synthesizer became part of Cohen's artistic identity during the mid to late 80s, embodying his preference for direct, unadorned musical expression. Despite its simplicity, the Casio PT-30 played a crucial role in helping Cohen craft a sound that was uniquely his own during this period. The PT-30, like many other early Casio models, was a relatively inexpensive, mass-produced instrument, often seen as more of a toy or a beginner's keyboard than a serious piece of musical equipment. Cohen reportedly bought the synthesizer in a somewhat casual manner, treating it as a tool to help with songwriting rather than as an investment in high-end gear. According to interviews and accounts from those close to him, Cohen purchased the PT-30 from a camera store in New York City on 47th Street and Broadway at a camera shop for tourists. According to Sylvie Simmons' book I'm Your Man, The Life of Leonard Cohen, Cohen had run out of ideas as a guitar player. There were certain things he could do with his guitar playing, but this cheap toy like Casio did things that he couldn't do on his guitar, and it made it possible for him to approach songwriting in a different way. Sylvie said, Leonard's Casio keyboard would have been $99, if that much, but I couldn't get Leonard to drop his Casio. The most enduring song on Cohen's album Various Positions is the song Hallelujah, which features drums straight from the Casio PT-30 keyboard Cohen used to compose it. Sylvie Simmons goes on to say the song, First, We Take Manhattan stood out for its harmonic sophistication. It was no longer just folk songs on guitar. Now that Leonard was writing on keyboards, he was writing from a different perspective. He wasn't sure at first whether we were going to hire a band. I think it was a mutual decision not to, and to record them as they were just as he was playing them on his keyboard. Cohen used the Casio PT-30 to record most of the album Various Positions, and his celebrated song The Hallelujah. For his next album, I'm Your Man, Leonard still used the Casio PT-30 to sketch out initial songs, but upgraded from his $99 Casio to a Technics KN3000 keyboard for the studio versions. The Technics KN3000 keyboard was still a primitive synthesizer with no individual outputs, making it a challenge to record. The engineers, technicians, keyboard players, and track performers listed in the credits far outnumber the conventional musicians. There were drum machines, synthesized strings, and push-button rhythms, as well as some of the most singular keyboard playing to have ever made it onto a major label album, such as the proudly plinked one-finger solo on Tower of Songs. Cohen's transition to 1980s style production and musical backing may have worked because he started from the bottom up. Rather than attempting to graft synthesizers on top of his folk ballads, he composed on a keyboard. The introduction of drums, which really started to take more prominence as far back as 1974's New Skin for the Old Ceremony, may work as well as it does because it was incorporated in the initial stages of the songwriting rather than tacked on afterwards. The producer of the album Various Positions said this about the Casio PT-30. Instead of presenting me with the new songs exclusively on a Spanish guitar as usual, he had this dinky little Casio keyboard with him. The Casio was a great discovery for Leonard because these machines allows you to put one finger down and have a whole band come back at you, and this is how he came up with the song The Dance Me to the End of Love. In 2010, producer John Lee Sauer revealed to Cohen biographer Anthony Reynolds that the drum track on the song Hallelujah is actually from the Casio keyboard the song had been composed on. He said, "It didn't even have audio output, so we had to set up a microphone. We tried to do that song with real drums and percussion, but he liked the simplicity of the Casio and had become accustomed to it." This explains the slight strain in Cohen singing on the track. Changing the key on the Casio would have meant altering the drum pattern that Cohen wanted to use. Why did Leonard Cohen select the Casio PT-30 to compose songs? The PT-30 might look like a cheesy toy made for school children, however it contains innovative features that have never been replicated since. The Casio PT-30 was released in 1982. It was part of a line of small, affordable portable keyboards during the early 1980s, designed for casual users and beginners rather than professional musicians. Despite its simplicity, the PT-30 found a place in the hands of artists like Leonard Cohen, who used it to create distinctive music. The PT-30 has many, monophonic keys and a selection of sounds and drum patterns. The PT-30 offers 8 presets voices such as piano, harpsichord, organ, violin, flute, horn, fantasy and mellow, the final one being not far off a high-pitched set of vibes. They're all thin and precise in tone, what could only be described as digital watch music. Fortunately, this Casio, like many others, has a jack output to feed to an external amp. The Casio PT-30 includes 18 drum patterns including rock and disco solid beats, alongside the waltz, polkas, and rumbas. What differentiates the Casio PT-30 from nearly any synth ever made before or since, is a set of black, white, and grey buttons underneath the internal speaker at the far left of the panel. They're chord selectors. There are 12 of them laid out like a keyboard and 8 more underneath choosing various chord shapes. It is possible to generate diminished chords, suspended fourths, minor sixths, sixths, major sevenths, minor sevenths, and sevenths with this section. So by simply pressing the root and chord type switches simultaneously, it is possible to produce complex chordal accompaniment to the rhythm and melody lines, which by then should be going full tilt. Only 3 other Casio synths, the PT-20, the PT-31, and PT-50 include this configuration. Other Casio synths include chord selectors, but they don't include options for diminished chords, fifths, major seventh, minor seventh, and so on. This technological innovation would allow Cohen to play different styles of music than his previous efforts in the 1970s. Cohen had been primarily a guitar player in the 1960s and 1970s. Upon the release of his album Various Positions, his style had completely changed. Gone were the classical Spanish guitars, and in their place were early 80s synthesizers and drum machines. The Casio PT-30's chord selector allowed Cohen to play diminished chords, major seventh chords, and minor seventh chords with ease instead of spending hours learning proper hand positioning technique. Cohen was able to create more complex song structures using this new innovative system and combining it with the Casio PT-30's drum machine. One of the greatest features of the synth for beginners, especially guitarists like Cohen who have ideas, but no synth technique, is the one-key play system. You feed in your melody, note by note at any speed, then go back to the beginning and overdub the feel and timing by hitting this one button that spits out the notes in their proper recorded order. On the PT-30 you can do that not only with the melody line, but with the chords as well. Now, it is possible to program into memory both the chords and melody lines in several different ways. For example, one can firstly load in the melody line, with or without a chordal accompaniment, in real time, or if one's playing is a little shaky, one can first enter the melody notes, then load the respective timings using the one-key plays facility, and then add the chords on later, or yet another option allows one to load in just chords. These can then be replayed at the touch of a button, the one-key chord. The melody line can thus be introduced afterwards, hence one doesn't have to worry about getting the right buttons down. In addition, having loaded in your melody line, you could experiment with different chords until you hit upon a suitable backing. Cohen would much more likely stumble on an unusual accompaniment this way, than if he had to figure out what chord shapes he knew on another keyboard. But if Cohen got stuck, he could ask the machine to harmonize. You hit the auto switch, and the electronics will analyze the tune you fed into it and play it back with a calculated accompaniment. If Cohen didn't like one of those selected chords, he had other options. Cohen could slide up to it with the forward or backward edit buttons and press the change switch. That will make the PT-30 think again. In total, the Casio PT-30 has 4 possible choices for every position. If you want more, then simply edit in a chord of your own picked out from those in the bottom left-hand corner. In the excellent book, Leonard Cohen on Leonard Cohen, Interviews and Encounters, the songwriter discusses his use of synthesizers. He notes the following when he released his album I'm Your Man. People have asked me if I used these synthesizers and these rhythms because I wanted to enter the 80s marketplace. Well, of course I'm aware of the marketplace, but there is no market strategy with this record. I experimented with many ways of doing the songs. I failed many times in the studio, and I ruined 4 or 5 of these songs I couldn't bring to completion. The only way these songs could survive at all is in the form that they have.
I loved you when you opened like a lily to the heat. You see, I'm just another snowman standing in the rain and the sleet. Who loved you with his frozen love and his second-hand physique.
The Casio PT-30 is becoming difficult to find these days. If you're lucky, you may find one at a garage sale, flea market, Goodwill, or pawn shop. eBay, Reverb, and other music gear selling platforms sell them from time to time for $100 to $200. The Casio PT-31 is identical to the PT-30 except that it is black. The PT-31 is rare and sought after by collectors. For those musicians that want the sound of Leonard Cohen's Various Positions album, another option is the Casio PT-20. This synth is a smaller rendition of the PT-30 with fewer presets and drum machine rhythms, but still retains the core functions, especially the chord selector. The Casio PT-20 is more widely available than the PT-30 synth. The Casio PT-50 is the only other Casio synth that offers the unique one-button chord selector that features fifths, sevenths, and diminished chords. The bass and drum machine sound different than the PT-30, and some consider it a lesser model, but it retains several of the core functions. One of the most bizarre Casio PT-30 combos is the Fisher SC300K Portable Music Composer System Boombox Stereo. Basically, the Fisher SC300K is a boombox with a removable musical keyboard. All components are interconnected when the keyboard is docked, which makes recording musical ideas convenient on a cassette deck on the boombox. There are also microphone inputs for recording or amplifying vocals or other external sounds. The boombox has a multi-band radio and tape player and recorder. It runs on batteries but can also be powered by an adapter or direct plug. The Casio PT-30 is one of the synths that could dock with the Fisher SC300K.
I drink at last, huh?
Yeah, well, but when you're in Europe, you drink wine, and when you tour in the US, you drink Red Needles? Is that?
Yeah, but I want to make something clear, and that's I only drink professionally.
Yeah, of course you do. Looks good.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is in here?
Nothing.
Oh,
I
good.
thought you were, if you wanted to shake it.
No, this has to be made quickly to address an emergency.
Cheers and welcome.
Cheers to you. Cheers to you, friends. Thank you.
The Casio PT-30 synthesizer was an important part of Leonard Cohen's songwriting because it embodied his artistic philosophy of finding beauty in simplicity. Despite its humble design and limited capabilities, the PT-30 allowed Cohen to focus on the essence of his music, the power of words and emotion. The minimalistic sounds of the keyboard provided a stark, haunting backdrop to his poetic lyrics, giving his music a unique, intimate feel. By choosing this unpretentious instrument, Cohen demonstrated that profound artistry doesn't require complexity or high-end equipment. Rather, it comes from the ability to make something meaningful out of whatever tools are at hand. The PT-30 became an essential part of Cohen's 1980s sound, helping to define a period of his career where his music remained as impactful as ever.